Hello, anyone not still living in the 1970s? We interrupt your day to bring you this announcement. Husker Ninja is in the building. Alright, guys, we are here today with the start of a brand new series on the channel. It'll be a new NCAA 14 Dynasty. And no, the South Alabama Dynasty is not going anywhere. I just feel like since my friend and I are both a little busy, especially when school starts, it would be best to just have an offline Dynasty I can still consistently upload, and then just upload South Alabama as my friend and I have time to play it. And so that's what this series is going to be. And I elected to start a new one instead of just making Northern Iowa a main series because I felt we had a little bit too much success too early with UNI. We won 9 games in each of our first 2 years. And while I still like that series and it's not really going to go anywhere, I just wanted to start a new one that will hopefully be a little bit more of a challenge. And you can see we went with our head coach is going to be Arthur Irby. He, the Heisman winner from Nebraska City. And you can see we did elect Akron as our new team. And we're going to do redshirt players and custom schedules and the depth chart and everything. And while we do that, I wanted to kind of explain why I chose Akron. So if you're really interested in it, you can keep an eye on that in the background while I talk through my reasoning. But really, I narrowed it down to the final two were Akron and UTSA. And I did put a little vote up in my Discord server to see, which team you guys wanted to see the most. And UTSA did win that series, or did win that vote. But ultimately, I went with Akron for 3 main reasons. And the first is that I know UTSA has already had a lengthy series done by a big YouTuber. Mr. Hurricane did them for I think it was 5, maybe 6 years in NCAA 13. And as far as I know, no one has done an extended series with Akron that has spanned more than maybe 2 years, if that. If I'm wrong on that, please feel free to correct me. But I thought really no one has done a super deep one with Akron like Mr. Hurricane did with UTSA. And the second reason is that I went in and I looked at the rosters, and I like both rosters pretty evenly. There are aspects of each team that I liked more than the other, but overall I liked them both about the same. And so that wasn't a deciding factor. But Akron is a higher team overall compared to fewer teams in the MAC than UTSA is in Conference USA. So that means there are more teams in Conference USA that have a worse overall than UTSA than there are teams in the MAC that have a worse overall than Akron. And so I thought that would make things more challenging off the bat. And as you can see, we're jumping into recruiting, and you can see the scouting I'm going to do. I'll go through just scouting a bunch of people. And real quick, before I get to the third reason I chose Akron, while we're on the subject of recruiting, something I developed a little while ago, really kind of around the time we started season 2 of South Alabama, was I thought recruiting, it can tend to get a little bit too easy on NCAA 14, especially after you play the game for a while and you get familiar with the recruiting system and what to look for. And so in an effort to make recruiting a little bit more difficult, I like to start out, and obviously this might change as we get later into the season and there are fewer available players and our guys we already have start committing. But at least to start out with, I like to limit recruiting to only your home state and the neighboring states. And so for Akron, that would be Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. And with UTSA, it would have been fewer, but you would have gotten Texas, which, in my opinion, is like one of the three biggest states in the game for recruiting. And so, even recruiting wise, that might have given us a little bit of an advantage than what we've got with Akron. Though, obviously, states like Pennsylvania and Ohio and Michigan can have some decent players too. It's just overall, like Texas is deeper. They've got more prospects than these other states do, and they have more better prospects than these other states do. So that was kind of another reason, but it wasn't one of the deciding ones because, like I said, there are still pretty good prospects in Pennsylvania and Ohio and Michigan. But so yeah, that's what I like to do at least to start with. And then if we get later in the year and our guys are starting to commit, and there aren't really a ton of viable options left in the people who are still available, uh, then I might open it up a little bit. But for the most part, we're gonna just stick with our home state and our neighboring states. I think that'll make recruiting a little bit difficult. We can probably still get some good quality players, obviously, but it won't be as easy to get as many good ones as if I can just recruit any state and then come like week 6, week 7, just start taking the 5 stars and the 4 stars that are less than 25% scouted, because that's how you get like the number one recruiting class every year. So that's just something I do personally to make it a little bit more challenging for myself recruiting wise. And it's kind of fun and I enjoy it. Um, so that was kind of a fourth reason, but it wasn't one of the three big ones. Like I said, really the two biggest are, Mr. Hurricane already did like a 5-6 year dynasty with UTSA in NCAA 13, and as far as I know, no one's really done anything like that with Akron yet. Um, and then the other one is just that there are fewer worse teams than Akron in the MAC than there are worse teams than UTSA and Conference USA. Really, those are the two biggest ones because I do want this series to be kind of a challenge. I don't want to go 9-3 my first year. Maybe 6-6, 7-5 if we get real, or 7-6 with the bowl game. But like 6-6 max is kind of what I'm hoping, especially for year one. And so I think that will make it more difficult, although it may not be a huge deal. I do think it'll make it at least slightly more difficult. And so that's part of the reasoning for this. And then kind of the third reason is that honestly, I do really like UTSA and I like their uniforms and I like their stadium. And that's why when I did decide to do a new dynasty, at first I thought UTSA was going to be a front runner and had a good chance to be who I picked. But looking at Akron, I like their color schemes and their uniforms as well. And I do like Akron Stadium too. But a key difference between Akron Stadium is that obviously Akron's in Ohio, but their stadium is outdoors, while UTSA's is the Alamo Dome, which is in a dome. And so I feel like with Akron we can get a little bit more weather variety, which that can be interesting too, Instead of just being in a dome with no wind, with Akron we might have some games where it's perfectly sunny and clear and no wind anywhere, but we could also have some games where it's super rainy. Or we could have games where it is really windy and there's like 20-mile-an-hour wind. Or we could have games later in the year where it's snowing. And so you can get, a different variety of weather that you can't get with UTSA when you're in Texas, for one. And for another, you're in a dome where it's just going to be no wind and no outside weather effects at all. And so while that reasoning and the recruiting reasoning aren't really what ultimately were the key difference makers, they were stuff I took into consideration. But really, the two biggest reasons were, like I said, just Akron is flat out better than fewer conference teams than UTSA was, and Again, you had Mr. Hurricane do a long series with them in NCAA 13, and as far as I know, there's no one who did anything like that with Akron. So, yeah, I mean, I know UTSA won the vote, but I hope you guys are going to be excited for this series because I know I am, and I think it'll be a lot of fun, and I'm excited to get this thing going. But that'll do it for me, and I will see you guys next time. Have a great day, everybody.